All right, well, welcome back, everybody. This is the first movies with GRose in a really long time, so I'm really glad to have a good friend here for it, Jimbo. How's it going, dude? How are you?
What's up, Tyler? It's good to
Um,
be here, man. Back in the
yeah,
saddle.
yeah, it's good to have you. We wanted to do something for Halloween. It's not quite 30 horror movies in 30 days because that would be treacherous. But we decided to give each other three films to watch that are kind of in the Halloween season. And it was really fun actually to do this because it definitely got me to watch movies that I probably would not have watched before, which I appreciate you like looking for things that I only assume you tried to pick something that you thought I hadn't seen before. I tried to do the same for you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I uh I was picking movies from a range of uh styles and
Yeah.
eras, I guess. So
Yeah.
to kind of get a feel for, different tropes and how they kind of evolved over the decades,
Yeah.
uh and how the genre kind of changed.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, in general, I mean, even looking at horror in like just current modern age, it's so hard to kind of categorize it or even analyze it as a genre. I guess media in general has become more multi-genred. But all of that to say, I did try to go through films that I liked, not necessarily love them all, and we'll get to that, but movies that I thought you probably hadn't seen before. I do wish though that I snuck in something more campy. That was one area where after the fact, I was like,
Yeah.
we should have done a silly one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, neither of us did any silly ones, right?
Yeah, no,
Like,
definitely.
yeah, like no Thanksgiving or whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Something
know?
because like that is that's a part of horror that it's probably the part that most people kind of swarm to, I guess, these days on a commercial level. It definitely seems like the campy stuff is kind of having a resurgence. Movies like The Monkey that just came out, where it's like it's kind of a
Right.
comedy and it's kind of a horror movie, and it's not amazing, but it's definitely camp. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
But I thought for this video, the way we could kind of do it is swapping off one on one. And I think it would be cool for us to try to pick a movie that we were told to watch. So, for instance, you would go and you would just pick one of the movies that I force you to watch and talk about.
Yeah.
And I'll let you pick. Since you're the guest, you can let me know if would you like to start us off, or would you like me to start us off?
I could start us off because there's one that's kind of uh I guess been burning at the front of my mind for a little while now,
Okay.
which is Titane
Yeah.
or Titane or whatever,
Yeah.
however it's pronounced in the French.
Yeah.
Um and to start things off with that, I put it on expecting it to be kind of a sort of a shock horror, a little bit blocky, a little bit offbeat.
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, I felt like I was getting that.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, it's like gruesomeness. It's like the way she kills people is disgusting and disturbing and makes you kind of wince, and I was kind of impressed as it introduced that what became the main plot with the firefighter
Right.
who was going through the I want to say the trauma of losing his son. I'm
Sure.
not sure if it's ever said specifically what happened there. Maybe you could
I
remind
don't
me of that, but
recall. Yeah.
yeah.
I think they
But
were just
by the end of the
missing.
movie, yeah, yeah, something like that. By the end of the movie, though, I felt like, okay, well, that was like a decent, like, shock
Sure.
horror,
Yeah.
you know, nothing like, honestly, my thought was like nothing particularly artful or elevated.
Okay.
And I did some Googling and I was like, holy shit, this won
People like
the
this
Palme
movie.
d'Or.
Yeah,
Th-
yeah,
This
yeah, yeah. I
this
saw that.
this won Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah,
And I was like, okay, like, am I missing something here?
sure.
So you can
No, I mean
go ahead
that. I
and give
mean,
me your take.
so 2021, this movie came out. I saw it in theaters with Natalie, and I think we talked about it in the first kind of Halloween video we did. Because at the time we had AMC A List, and we kind of just decided to go, and we didn't even know until the movie had started that it was a foreign film. Like that's how little we knew about the movie. So,
Right.
and I remember while watching the movie thinking like, obviously they're trying to shock, and parts of it definitely feel almost out of place. Like there's a whole kill
Right.
sequence very early on with the main character
Right.
that isn't really like part of the movie. Like she doesn't go on to like kill anyone else in the movie. She's
Right.
not that's not like I guess it's just a weird starting place for her character. But what I will say is I do remember Titane being a movie that I couldn't stop thinking about for like a couple days after I watched it. And that usually always elevates a movie or my opinion of a movie when I keep coming back to it. And I felt that there was personally, I thought there was enough going on with like the themes of like gender identity. When I first saw the movie, I thought it was, more of a direct allegory to like the trans experience. Especially the way that like I remember his family friends come in at certain times and make comments that seemed parallel to that of someone that's disapproving of like their child switching gender. And then like the father would come in and be like, that's my child, like how dare you. And so I thought that stuff was interesting and worked for me. But it is a messy movie. It is totally all over the place.
Yeah, and speaking to the well, first to the trans allegory, I think that's the one that to me does feel the most explored.
Sure.
Um because it's kind of a finding acceptance,
Yeah.
and there's clearly there's like the literal trauma of, she was in this car accident as a kid. It's sort of implied, sort of shown a little bit that she didn't get much love at home
Yeah,
growing
it's
up.
very I
And so,
remember it being kind of light on all that stuff like exposition wise.
right. And so I would say like the trans thing, like the character um does feel, the main character does feel sort of fulfilled by the end, finds that familial love, um that is, what's the word? Unconditional love,
Sure.
by the end. Um but I would also say that there's a lot of stuff that does not feel like it goes full circle. A lot of things that are
Yeah.
introduced and just kind of fizzle away,
Yeah.
kind of never come back. Like you said with the murder sequence early on, she is shown to be like essentially a psychopathic, like
Like yeah,
Michael
like an
Myers
assassin,
killer.
you know.
Yeah, like she's murdering what we can only assume are innocent people,
It's a
like
crazy
early on
sequence.
for seemingly no reason. And like the murderousness, the psychopathy, like kind of just is never addressed again.
Yeah.
Like the only things that are addressed is that she's wanted, but her being wanted like for murder never matters again,
Yeah,
right?
no, no, no.
Because
I mean it
the
it
guy, yeah,
it almost just seems like a side characteristic to set up her character. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's almost only there to be like this is a character that has been forced to learn how to do these terrible things because of what I don't know, bad upbringing or objectification. There's definitely something going on in here about because obviously if it's a story about gender identity and you're trying to explore that honestly, obviously like sexualization plays a part of that. And they do that a little bit with like the strip scene at the beginning, and then there's the part where like she's on like the fire truck towards the end where I feel like the director's trying to say something here. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what it is, but it does feel a little more elevated.
Yeah, and I feel like if it was consistent in the beginning, that because there's this scene where a guy follows her after the club and he runs up to her car. He's like, I know you. Hey,
Yeah.
let me kiss you. Like, if it was consistently like she's murdering people who are like harassing her, who
That's what they
sexually
set the
assaulted
movie
her,
up to be, right? Like that's kind of
that
what you
is
think it is at the start.
that is at the start, but then there's that scene where she, murders that whole house of people, and it's never shown or
Yeah.
implied that any of them assaulted her or harassed her or anything. Like, she just brutally, gruesomely kills them. And I
Yeah.
feel like if there was some semblance of like they, crossed a line, or at least one of them like crossed a boundary with her, then I could be like, oh well, he had like a defense mechanism as like a reason for why she did this, and then maybe she went like way too far. Like, maybe one of them assaulted her, but then she killed the whole house. I would understand that as like a character trait, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would feel like that is kind of explored then with the rest of the movie, because then she's like accepted, you know, like there's something that kind of
I think
feels
that's what they were
resolved
going
there.
for, but I don't,
Yeah.
and granted, it's been a little while since I've seen this movie, but my recollection of it was, yeah, like some guy comes up to the car and he's really fucking, obviously, there's like a sexual, deviancy aspect to it, and then I remember that kind of blending into her killing this house full of guys, but it's out of place, and
Yeah.
it's odd in general to kind of changed the whole movie, like halfway through. I mean, the movie starts with this story about this like super sexualized lady and her killing rapists essentially, and then it just turns into a story of like, oh no, actually I'm like hiding as this missing child. Like it just completely
Right.
shifts gears, which is
Right.
can pay
No
off,
pun
but it's
intended.
weird. Yeah, pun intended. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's not even touching on like the car baby stuff, which I didn't even like.
Right.
I kind of, yeah, I mean, what I remember the ending being really insane, but beyond that, it doesn't really
Right.
matter, I guess. Is there a deeper
Right.
story there?
Yeah, and that's another thing that like it's another sort of thing they put in place that never goes anywhere or matters, and I feel like it so easily could have, right?
Sure.
Um because she's got this sexual attraction to cars. She has sex with a car, gets pregnant with what we can presume early on is a car baby, half human, half car. And then, I was thinking like I assumed that it would happen before the end, that she has the baby, and
Right.
then, you know, with the whole trans allegory, I think that could be really interesting. Like, what if the baby is born like really gruesome and fucked up, and the unconditional love that she's shown by like the firefighter
Right.
then gets like transferred to the child,
Right.
right? And I think that could have been really interesting, but it's not really explored, right?
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's
the
like the final
baby
shot of the movie
being
is like the baby being born, and
right,
then it just ends, right?
right, baby being half car doesn't doesn't matter at all. It could have just been
Yeah,
a normal baby, you
I'm
know?
almost wondering if like there's some other message or parallel in there that I'm just not picking up on with the whole car thing, or if it really is just there to make us think. Like, I don't know, like sometimes there are movies where it's very atmospheric. I mean, this is definitely a movie that like relies or tries to rely heavily on atmosphere. There's that one scene where all the firefighters are dancing inside and they're like smoking and there's cool lighting and it's just a vibe scene. And it definitely seems like a movie that's trying to provoke but maybe doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, I feel like I respect some of what it's trying to do
Sure.
with the provocation, with like the trans allegory, and this character who never had love, has a lot of trauma, and finds love later on. I have complete respect for that. I have less respect for like the stuff that I perceive as like shock for shock's sake. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, all the gruesome murders at the beginning and the car baby thing and the car sexuality thing,
Mm-hmm.
that to me feels like it's just shock for shock's sake. And I feel like it kind of lessens the value of like the naturally shocking things to have things that you're thrown in that like to me is like artificially shocking. It's like you're throwing this in because you know it'll shock people
Yeah,
because you
the
know it'll get under people's skin.
well, see, the again, like when it comes to like the car sex and like her stripping on the car and all that, like I can at least attribute all of that to the theming of like gender identity. Like even the car stuff, like I can in my mind justify that as being somehow thematically like on point because of all of this other sex stuff in the movie. But the killing,
Yeah.
like the weird killing rampage that she goes on early in, I think is literally just there like to not even necessarily shock people. I think it's, I mean, yes, but more in like a traditional like horror movie sense, not in like a
Yeah.
morality sense of just being like, oh, look at this like crazy horror movie scene. Look at our horror movie. But like in reality, like it's not, it probably isn't a horror movie. You know, it's kind of just a
Right.
drama.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're on the same page. I think I gave it brownie points because it stuck with me. I guess is all I could say.
Yeah, and I would say it stuck with me too. And maybe on a rewatch, some of these parts that are sort of scattered everywhere will come together in a better way for me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the director, Julia something, like French name, she made another movie called Raw in 2016 that I think people
Yeah.
like, but I think it's about like a cannibal lesbian. I want to say.
Okay.
So, this director definitely has like a
A
lane, you
niche.
know, a niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like to explore sexual themes in kind of a gross way, and I think
Mhm.
that's something that like American films rarely do, unless we're maybe talking about like Cronenberg. So I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to see something like that.
Yeah. Definitely. So, would you like to throw out the next film
Yeah,
you want to talk
yeah.
about?
So I would like to talk about an American Werewolf in London, which
Nice.
was also the first movie of yours that I watched. 1981. I growing up, I've seen some John Landis films, even though I didn't like really know that they were his films. Like I've seen
Right.
Trading Places, I've seen Coming to America, I've heard of Three Amigos, I've heard of Animal House, I've heard of Blues Brothers. So like I always kind of knew
Right.
him as this like comedy guy, which I think made, you know, as I was watching this movie, when I looked it up, I was kind of surprised, but also it made sense in another way. Um, Off the bat, the movie is like very clearly trying to poke fun at like Americans, and like Americans
Right.
are dumb and they're crass, and that seems to be kind of the opening theme, which blends really well into what the movie's really about, which is like they go into this pub and you kind of assume everyone is just shitting on them like because they're American, but it's also kind of because they're like we're a secret like werewolf killing society that like doesn't really
Right.
want you here right now. But it was good, man. Honestly, the creepy werewolf stuff worked for me. I think there are a lot of werewolf movies that don't work. Like there's tons of them. They keep trying to make werewolf movies and they always kind of blow. And I think the
Right.
comedy aspects of this definitely helped it. My I think my main critique with this movie is how inexplicably horny that nurse is, and like how every aspect of her character embodies like the male fantasy of like
Yeah.
guy traveling abroad. Like she invites her to stay with him after like just falling in love with
Yeah.
him at the hospital, I guess. And then like he's still just a moron and she's like, whatever, like let's just like have sex all the time. Like that's her character in the movie. That's my only critique of it, which is like it's a 1981 comedy. Like I guess
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that's definitely a common 80s trope. I'm trying to think of another good example, but I know there's thousands of them out there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like that's especially an 80s thing. Like the mediocre or dorky guy and the girl who's just obsessed with him. Um
But
for
it's like
no
it was
good
like
reason.
the fact that she was like he moves in with her. Like why
Right.
doesn't he just fly back to America? Like what are we doing?
You know you know what though? It's kind of Marty McFly and his mom, right? Like
Okay, I'm
like
listening.
he's in danger. He's injured or sick in the
Yeah, yeah,
hospital,
yeah, like a
and then
wounded
she
wounded
has like
puppy.
the nurses.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like the trope of the nurse falls in love with the patient, which
I
I
could
have
see
no
that.
idea if there's any reality in that in like psychology in real life. Freud might have something to say about that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that I mean that's definitely like a thing, and like it didn't ruin the movie for me. It was the one
oh
area
yeah,
of the movie that was like it felt almost out of place
yeah,
by how absurd I felt she was being.
uh-huh,
But I mean, I the tone of the movie was just so on point. You know what I mean? Like they ride
right,
the line between like genuinely devastating, like there were moments where I was like actually really sad, and then
right,
like really well executed comedy stuff like with his friend coming back and like visiting him as
right,
an undead and like slowly
right.
rotting over time, and like the lore behind that of like we have to end the wolf bloodline or else all of our victims are trapped here on earth, like all of that. I don't know if that's like a classic werewolf thing or if John Landis just invented that, but that's really cool. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. And to my understanding, this was the first and maybe only movie that did that. I could be completely
Yeah,
wrong
I don't
on that,
know.
but
I
I've never heard of it again beyond
Right.
this.
And I could
Because
see it. I
you
could see
know,
it being cheesy, but it was executed really well. And like the practical effects are so great throughout the whole movie, including those parts. I think that really helped. Is that he genuinely looked like he was just rotting every time he came back.
yeah, and it kind of brings werewolves as like a movie phenomenon. It kind of distinguishes them from like vampires, right?
That's what
Because
I'm saying. Yeah.
vampires are like they go out in the night, they hunt people, they kill them, whatever. But then a lot of the times it's like, oh well, werewolves are just like the less sexy version of that.
Yeah.
This gives it something that's like unique to the werewolf, right?
Yeah.
Like their victims are trapped in this like presumably hellish or unpleasant limbo
Yeah.
until the werewolf dies. If I'm remembering correctly,
Yeah.
I actually saw it 2 years ago tomorrow.
Oh wow.
So that was the last time I saw it, but I do remember it pretty vividly.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking to like what you said about the tonal balance between like comedy and horror,
Yeah.
um, there, you know, there's this moment that I'll never forget where, oh, they for one reason or another, they find themselves in a porn theater, and like you get a glimpse of the plot of the porn they're
Oh yeah,
watching,
dude, I totally
and the
forgot.
yeah,
They
and
do a
it's
fair amount of it.
yeah, and a guy walks in on like this man and woman having sex, and he's like, "You, what are you doing?" And the guy's like, "We're having sex," and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, with her?" He's like, and she's like, "I don't know you," and he's like, "No, no, no, him," and he's like, "I don't know you either," and the guy's like, "Oh, okay, wrong room."
Dude, I remember now. Yeah, there were a couple shots where they kind of. Again, it makes sense that he's like a comedy guy, but I think overall the movie leans more serious. You know, it's not a slapstick movie by any means. It takes the
Oh yeah,
lore and all of that very seriously. So it is interesting that he's able to like kind of balance those wacky moments in there. Um, I will also say like the settings were like really, really, really well done. It
Yeah,
really the scene where the werewolf attacks them when they're kind of just lost and they're
right.
wandering about, and it just
Yeah,
seems to be like endless empty plains with like
yeah,
fog and um
yeah. Like the rolling hills. Yeah,
yeah, it's a great setting, and it lends a lot of like a genuine suspense to the movie where I think
right.
it would have been a lot harder to blend the comedy in if that stuff didn't work. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great movie. And you're right, vampires have all this cool stuff, all this extra lore to them, and werewolves don't.
Right.
Oh, my only other complaint for this movie is there are two full moons in a row at the end of the movie, and I don't
Oh,
know what the fuck that's all about. Because
don't
there's
worry
like the
about it.
first full moon where he like goes crazy and realizes like he's a werewolf, and then the next night is another full moon, which doesn't. It's
No,
once a
dude.
month.
You gotta read some more of the lore, dude.
Yeah,
That's a wolf moon.
yeah, it's a wolf moon. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
no, that was a good rack. Thank you.
yeah, and just to close it out, with fuck John Landis, he should have gone to prison.
Oh yeah, because he did the Twilight Zone
Yeah,
movie, which I have not seen, and people died on set, and it was totally his fault. Seems like a
yeah,
genuine general scumbag. So
yeah, dude. Yeah, there was an interview with Eddie Murphy for Playboy where Eddie Murphy basically said, I felt bad for John Landis after that accident because I assumed it wasn't his fault and he got the flack wrongly. So I insisted with the production company that he do the directing for I think it was Coming to America.
okay.
And he begged the company, even though John Landis was demanding absurd amounts of money, he got him hired. And then as soon as John Landis showed up on set, he was like, "Fuck you, Eddie. You should have supported me more. And I'm in charge around here, and you got to listen to what I have to
A
say."
fucking scumbag, dude.
Yeah. Then one day in Eddie Murphy's trailer, he called John Landis in and he said, "You got to show me some fucking respect, or I'm gonna beat your ass." And then John Landis got scared of him the rest of the time.
I mean,
So
I definitely believe that,
happy
dude.
ending there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, this movie's pretty
So
good. So I don't know.
all right. Um, let me. So I could go ahead and pick the next one.
Yeah, go for it.
Uh, what else was there? Oh yeah, yeah. The that zombie. Oh my God, what was it called?
When evil lurks, I think
When
is I
when
think
evil lurks. I think you're right.
it's a
Yeah, when
Spanish
evil
movie.
lurks. Yeah, that one was really solid.
It's pretty dark. I'll let you
Yeah.
say your initial thoughts, but it's a pretty dark movie.
This was a movie where it's got a pretty slow pace to it,
Uh huh.
right? I think there's a few like big shocks early on, but it's got this slow pace kind of where you're sitting with these characters and a lot of it they're on the road. Um and I feel like it really worked. I feel like we were given a decent amount about the characters in order to care about them. I think there could have been a little bit more, for some of them,
It's a little
but
light, yeah.
overall, yeah, overall, they did a good job building the tension. They had a unique kind of take on it's not even zombies. It's like demonic possession that
Yeah,
kind of
it's
turns you
it's
into a zombie
yeah, it's like
that's
kind of
linked
like a
to like a
curse
plague.
almost. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, like a plague curse almost.
Yeah, it reminded me of Evil Dead in that way, where like,
Oh, sure.
in Evil Dead, you've got Deadites, which they're not zombies, they're not like demons necessarily, they're kind of like vampires in a way.
Yeah.
And so this kind of created something a little bit new and a little bit different.
Yeah, and I
And
don't
I
know if
really
maybe
respect.
this is like maybe it's more known in like Spanish lore, you know what I mean? Or like
Yeah,
I don't know if Spain or Mexico or I don't know exactly, but like maybe this idea is like I don't know how original it is. I'm a little ignorant there,
yeah,
but
that's a good point.
it's It definitely, I remember it. It is kind of slow, and it's by no means a perfect movie. This director, he's done, like, if you look at his resume, like, he's done a bunch of, like, random shit, but none of it looks particularly highly, like, funded. And it's obviously all, like, Spanish movies, so it's nothing that I've seen of or heard of. But I think this was kind of his first, like, somewhat big movie. Like, I watched one other thing he did called Terrified in 2017, and it was fine. But
Right.
I think with that in mind, it kind of, there are aspects of the film that I remember feeling a bit amateur, like just in how it's sort of paced.
Right.
And, but I don't know, for whatever reason, this is a very cruel movie that stuck with me. Usually movies that are kind of just cruel for the sake of being cruel, I don't really enjoy. But for
Right.
whatever reason, this one, like the demonic stuff kind of worked for me. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, for me there was a lot of great spectacle. There was a lot of, looming dread, danger. It was also, on top of being like this zombie demon curse movie, it was kind of an apocalypse movie too, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's sort of shown or implied that like a lot of the world is like completely screwed with this demonic plague, but then there are also some parts that have been managed to keep it out and maintained like a normal society. Like
Mm.
early on, he visits his like ex-wife, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
with his kids there, um, and it's sort of like a normal suburban lifestyle there.
Yeah.
But he ends up, accidentally bringing this plague there, and it gives us that insane moment early on with the dog attacking
That
the little
child.
little
Yeah, yeah.
kid, the
That
little child.
dude, that is probably like one of the most, again, cruel things I've seen ever in a
Yeah,
movie. And it was, I remember when I watched this movie, I was like, "Oh, I guess it's just like kids die in horror movies now." Like I feel like my entire life
yeah,
that was something that like was always cut off screen. Always. And now I
right,
see
right.
it all the time. I mean, I'm not making a judgment on that. I'm just saying it stuck with me. It definitely, and again, usually I'm not into stuff that's just like cruel or shocking for the sake of being shocking, but the atmosphere worked here for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely. I would also say there was some really solid. This is a different topic, but I would say there's some solid cinematography here too,
Yeah.
in like sort of the plains with like the setting sun. A lot of those early scenes are very like orange and red and
Mm-hmm.
yellow, and then if I remember correctly, as the movie goes on, it's more nighttime
Mm-hmm.
later, and it's a lot more blue,
Yeah.
black, red. Um, and I don't know. I just think that's a cool kind of color evolution throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Um, it maybe even like color wise, it's like an allegory for like the hopelessness at the end of the
Oh.
world. Like, you can have your illusion of safety in these towns, but as things go on, things will get darker and that safety will end.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
like you said, it's a cruel and bleak movie.
it's very bleak, and it's like, to that point, the ending is probably a big reason why I like the movie, is that the movie ends with just like everyone loses. You know what I mean? Like I think
Right,
everyone dies, like no one outsmarts the demon. There's no
right.
deus ex machina that's thrown in at the end. Like it just goes terrible. And I think, not every horror movie can end that way, but usually they're more fun when they do. Usually they have a little bit
Yeah,
more to say, or like more rewatchability. I don't know. I lean towards those movies a little bit more, I guess.
yeah, and I think it hurts rewatchability to know that you're ending on a real downer note like that.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause
that's true.
I feel a little bit less drawn back to those movies because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like
true.
I'm just gonna be like depressed by the end, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. No, and it doesn't even have like, at least with a movie like Sinister, it's like everyone loses at the end, but there's like all of that like stupid exposition shit in the third act that
Right,
like
right.
kind of at least like allows you to level out before the movie ends.
Yeah, it's kind of the movie steps on its own foot but in a way that almost benefits it
Yeah,
because it makes you want to watch it more.
yeah. No, dude, that's so funny. I hadn't really like considered that before, but I mean, it's so true though. There's so many horror movies that like they kind of just turn into like action flicks in the third act because
Right,
like all of the mystery and horror is just removed from it.
right.
And so it's cool to see a movie where they're like, fuck it, like everyone's just gonna die. Like it's just
Right.
it's everything sucks. It's all gross.
Yeah. And
Everything looked fucking terrible and gross.
yeah, and that's how this is a tangent. That's how I think Evil Dead Rise should have ended because like
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly like what you said. It turned into like an action movie.
Yeah.
You know, the demon nerfs itself and becomes like less powerful for no reason,
Yeah.
and then they kill it, and then a couple of them survive.
Yeah.
It would have been stronger, like and
Everyone dies.
more. Yeah, everyone dies. It fucking infects the whole apartment building,
It
and
sucks, dude. Shit
scatter
just sucks and the movie's
that would
over.
be so much better. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would have been better to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
But
totally agree. I and
that's a tangent.
it's funny because there are some horror movies where like the sequel is just sci-fi action because that's
Right.
the direction that they're forced to go, like Megan to Megan 2, or like Happy
Uh-huh.
Death Day to Happy Death Day 2. Like there are a few examples where it's like they remove all the mystery and tension, but they're like we're still committed, like we gotta make another we
Right.
gotta do another movie still.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Or like Alien to Aliens.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. Yeah, I mean that kind of set the framework, but at least it was a good action movie. You know,
Oh, I
I
agree. Yeah.
so that's kind of an exception, I guess. All right.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead. Pick the next movie.
Well, let me think. I think I would like to select The Exorcist III as my next
Nice.
pick because I would like because the other one you chose I want to end on. The Exorcist III was it was a good movie. You know, it's I just saw The Exorcist 1 for the first time a few years ago. And I put that at like a hard 7 out of 10. It might even deserve a little bit more. I've only seen it the one time. But I haven't seen Exorcist 2, so I skipped right to this one, the third. I heard the second one kind of sucks anyway.
Oh yeah. I haven't
And
seen the second one either.
okay. And it was good. It's a movie that's ultimately about like two guys kind of, wrestling with their faith and wrestling with the facts, right? There's like a huge mystery to this movie as to, who's committing this crime. And that obviously parallels the mystery of the first movie, which is what is ailing this little girl, right?
Right.
This movie does a good job of, using that same theme without just doing the exact same thing again. It's not
Right.
just little girl 2.0 or little boy 2.0 that's possessed, and it's not just the exact same movie. They do manage to do this kind of mystery plot about this serial killer and who is the killer, and the fingerprints don't match up, and they do something a little different with it, but at its core it's still a movie about wrestling with faith. And so I enjoyed kind of the philosophical things, and they still managed to have some good horror. Like there's that, the jump scare in the hospital with the shears that like
Right.
everyone points to. Like that's like the moment from this. Like before I've even seen this movie, I knew about that moment.
Yeah.
So there's some good horror stuff. I think it could have been a little like I found the first one to be spookier, like there's more
Right. Right.
like kind of abrasive, shocking things in that one. Um but I liked the ending of this movie, so that helped as well. I think for a movie like this you kind of
Yeah.
have to nail the ending, and I thought that helped. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I feel like I'm kind of just rambling, but it's kind of
No,
a
you're good.
rambly movie.
No, you're definitely good. And it is a rambling movie. There's a lot of that. A ton of the movie is exposition, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into that in a second. But the first thing I want to kind of latch onto that you said was how this is like a completely different story than the first one. And it works. It's a totally new direction for the franchise.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to how you said, like, a lot of horror sequels go into like, oh, it's like the action version. It's like now there's like a million of this threat. Now there's a bunch of guys with guns, and they got to take out the threat in the city. There's like
Mm-hmm.
1,000 possessed people, whatever. Um, but this does it in such a unique way that works. Like I can't think of, off the top of my head at least, I can't think of any other example where like a sequel of like, a horror movie, like a paranormal horror movie, turns into like basically a police procedural in
Yeah,
almost
no, exactly. Yeah, it's a detective
so
movie.
different.
It's almost
Yeah,
like Seven in that regard, where it's like
yeah,
a horror movie with like a detective backdrop to it.
right. And it's almost noir in a way, or at least influenced by noir.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like we're following Detective Kinderman, who's a fairly minor character in the first one. Um, and I think he's so great, and they do such a great job of like expanding him into this strange and fleshed out character. Like he's this guy with a lot of anger in him, resentment, a little bit of like grief because he was uh, a big friend and admirer of Father Karras from the first one, and you know this paranoia that like this killer or like a copycat killer could still be out there. Um, and I think that they did such a good job with that. Like the writing all around was great. Like the character
Yeah,
writing, the dialogue was like elite level. I
yeah,
thought
yeah, yeah.
that like all of the dialogue engaged me, even when like there were times, and I think you'll agree with this, where some of the dialogue scenes were pretty expository. Some
Hmm.
of the dialogue scenes were like rehashing things we might have already heard,
Yeah.
but it was always so interesting to hear them talk. Tarantino kind of thing was how it was what it
Yeah,
kind of
no,
reminded me of.
this movie shines with the writing. I mean, that's most of the movie, right? It's kind of just like guys talking about their ideas.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to draw your attention to, that really pulled me in early on was this conversation between Lieutenant Kinderman and Father Dyer. And there's like rain pouring down the window in the background, and he's telling Father Dyer about this situation at home where his mother-in-law is visiting. Whenever she visits, she makes carp, and carp has to be fresh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you She keeps the carp in the bathtub, swimming back and forth for
yeah,
days before she cuts it up and serves it, and it's driving him insane.
yeah.
And I thought, like, this is peak. This is the most
It's great because it's
gonzo
funny.
batshit.
It's funny and it's gonzo, but it also like I can pull like a thematic parallel out of that. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah.
Like it does like it's not just funny, but yeah, no, I mean that's like one of the best sequences for sure.
Yeah, and it does such a great job of like setting up Kinderman's character. Like this guy is like fed up.
Yeah.
He's angry and he's about to take it out on someone, and he's taking it out through this case.
Hmm.
Um and I really loved that.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a good movie. It's definitely, it's funny, movies like this could get made in, the 80s or even maybe the early 90s where they're like, "Okay, what franchise do we have? Let's just have like some guy do like some random shit." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
franchises are not handled like that anymore. They're always very formulated and they follow a very
Right.
predictable kind of path. But yeah, I mean, to do something so unique, again, it's really like you could take the demon stuff out of this movie and it would still
Right.
work, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but they managed to tie it into like the Exorcist franchise in like a good enough way. It's a
Yeah.
franchise that could have been like an interesting anthology almost, you
Right.
know. So yeah, I,
Yeah.
I respect that a lot.
And I want to add, because you said this about um it's legacy sequels, right?
Sure.
And nowadays every legacy sequel has to be the same story as the original, just
Mm.
like a little different. And like you got to have the old characters there, but then you got the new characters who are kind of the same as the old
Yeah,
characters.
the
You know,
requel.
Star Wars did this. Yeah, the requel. And I think we got to bring back like a sequel that is like totally different. You
Yeah.
know, a whole new genre.
Yeah.
Like and then just tie it in to the same universe, you know? New story, new characters, and
Yeah,
then just tie it
it's
in
like
however you tie it in.
it's sad that we're in a world where like, you have to attach an IP to something, but I would prefer that approach to it, I think. The only other example I can think of that's somewhat modern is 10 Cloverfield Lane, where
Yeah.
that's just a horror movie that has nothing to do with Cloverfield, and then they like in a really messy way tied to Cloverfield at the end. So it's not like a
Right.
great
Right.
implementation, but it's like, yeah, I'd be down for more of that. Like, fuck it. Like, sure. Like,
Yeah, I
because it
agree.
could be interesting like this. You could actually have something new and interesting that fits the themes of the franchise, you know? It doesn't have
And
to be like completely unrelated.
it's a great way of getting new stories out there.
Hmm.
Um with a chance of like actually being successful and making money, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Because if you like tried to sell this movie without any ties to The Exorcist whatsoever, it like no production company would pick it up, you know, no distributor would put it out there. No one, honestly, no one would watch it, which is sad in its own right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like at least we've got this new story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
People are watching it.
sometimes when you put like certain restraints on people, you get something interesting, right? So
Yeah.
it can work. It was a fun watch. Yeah, good rec.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Can I,
let's get to this last
yeah,
one
yeah,
that
yeah.
I gave you because I know you didn't love it. So
Yeah,
let's dig
yeah.
in.
Yeah, that's why I saved it for last because there was a little bit of contention here.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We can dive into that a little bit and have fun with it. Um, you know, The Dark and the Wicked, there are certain elements that I think were excellent, all right? I think that the cinematography was great, especially near the beginning. You get a lot of these brooding kind of landscape shots of this farmland, and it just it's lonely, it's bleak, and something's not right.
Sure.
And then we get a glimpse of like a demonic presence, you know, among the goats, right? And I that pulled me in right away. I was like, this is this is something interesting, you know?
Yeah.
This is it was that cinematography, and you know, I thought that was really interesting to show like give a glimpse of the physical like demon, the threat right away. Like you never see that. You know, 90% of movies you're waiting the whole time, right? Um, so that gave me a unique sort of hook, pulling me in right away.
Yeah.
Where the film, you know, kind of slowly lost me
What's the rest of the
was,
movie?
yeah, it was the rest of it. Um, because, and you know, I don't even think that this is an inherently bad thing. There's not much of a plot, you know, pushing the movie forward. There's not much of
It's a
a
thin plot.
it's more like they're hanging out there processing their trauma and grief, and just it's just the things that happen over the course of the next week,
Yeah,
right?
and
It's and then every night something happens, you
And
know?
so we talked about this movie very, very briefly in a group chat, which is the only reason I know some of your thoughts. And well, outside of Letterboxd, obviously. But the so after kind of reading your review and all of that, what I've kind of come to sit with is for whatever reason, the horror stuff, the spooky stuff in this movie worked for me. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
just where I was when I saw it. I don't know if it was just the mood I was in. I don't know if maybe I rewatched the movie and none of the spooky stuff works for me. But I was reading a lot of reviews and stuff, and you're not the only one that found, the spooky stuff to be like generic or lackluster or uninteresting. And if I had that opinion, I could see myself liking this movie a lot less because that spooky stuff it elevated the rest of the movie for me because like the theme of the movie is it's thin but it's it's self-doubt and it's denial and
Right.
it's, questioning if you're just going crazy from loneliness and you can't trust your own head, or if these things are actually happening. That's like the broader plot. And yeah,
Yeah.
if I wasn't engaged by any of the scary stuff, I could definitely see the rest of it just falling apart.
And I would say that there were three scary moments that set it apart in a positive way. Um, the one that I mentioned, first of all, which happened early on, and it shows like the demon among the goats. Um, then there is the moment where the mom is chopping up her fingers on the chopping block. That one, I was like, oh, that's pretty gruesome. That's
Yeah, it
that's
kind of
pretty
reminded me
badass.
of Evil Dead Rise, that we were just talking about.
Yeah, yeah, kind of the possessed into self harm type of thing. And I was like, okay, that's pretty badass. And then she kills herself. And then there was the third one, which I'm still 50-50 on whether I liked it, where the mom appears and she kind of levitates
Uh-huh.
off the ground and
Yeah.
he sees her, um, at night. And, there's part of me that thinks that was pretty cool. That was pretty spooky. Um, there's another part of me that I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that maybe wasn't that unique. I feel like
The
that's
movie in
been done.
general, you mean?
Just well that
Oh, that
one.
spooky element of it. Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
I'm not sure.
I don't think any of it was particularly like super unique. I think it was.
Right.
I found it to be well executed. But yeah, I mean, nothing about this movie was particularly. And again, I don't think it's like a 10 out of 10 movie, but I think another aspect of I did personally find like the story to be engaging. Like I related to aspects of it of, you know, dealing with, you know, illness and in the family, and dealing with, siblings during those periods, and dealing with like figuring out like, am I just the problem here, or is there really something larger at play? Like I appreciated those ideas. They weren't explored like super heavily, which I can totally understand that criticism, but I did find it to be like a nice slow burn backdrop for, again, the spooky stuff that did work for me. But I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, the movie sits at like a 6 out of 10 on Letterbox. You're right under that, and I'm right above that. So we're not like, we
Right.
don't deviate, I guess, that heavily.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of thinking about like um why the whole grief theme and allegory
It's
here didn't
overplayed.
work for me. Well, it's overplayed is part of it, but I feel like, and this is something that I think a lot of recent horror movies in like the past 10-ish years have
Yeah,
done.
I think this one's
Um,
2020, just for reference.
yeah, so past 5 to 10 years, I would say, when horror movies deal with this grief and trauma, and they have like a creature that is a metaphor, or like a presence that is a metaphor for the grief and trauma, a lot of the times they use that as like a replacement for writing compelling characters. And what
Sure.
I mean by that is, if you're going to have a character go through trauma, go through grief, you have to have a solidly written character
Mm,
before that, because
yeah,
the audience needs a juxtaposition. We need to be able to have something to compare that to, right?
sure.
So if the character is just brooding and and sad, and they've got like resting like
It's just miserable.
exhausted face, miserable face
Yeah.
the whole time, to make that work, you've got to show that there's an alternative for them, right?
Yeah,
You've got to
that's
show that they
fair.
can be happy, right?
I agree with you. I even agree with like the point that it is a larger issue. I think horror movies notoriously have had kind of one-dimensional characters, but I think it sticks out more when you're trying to have like an elevated theme. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
different when it's like Scream, and it's like, yeah, these characters don't need to be like that deep. It's a slasher
Right.
flick. So I totally understand that. And I've only seen this movie the one time, and it was in January. So maybe if I rewatched it, maybe I'd be in a different headspace. I wouldn't like it as much as I did. But I don't know. When I was looking through my films, this one stood out to me for some reason. But they can't all hit, Jimbo. They can't all be
They
hitters.
can't they can't all hit. Even when we try. Even when we try. Sammy Sosa, he took steroids and he couldn't hit all of them. He still couldn't hit all of them.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, I don't know. And who made this? I just want to see before we wrap up talk on this film. I want to remind myself who wrote it. It's The Dark and the Wicked, right?
Yeah, it was the director and writer were the same guy.
Oh, he did
Brian
The
Bertino.
Strangers, which I actually
Yeah.
don't really like The Strangers.
Yeah, and it's a very similar thing where I felt like there was strong moments early on and just there wasn't like an interest or like there was like a laziness in not exploring the interesting parts
Sure.
throughout the whole film. And the monster, I'm pretty sure I've seen this, but I'm not certain. It's the one where like there's a mother and a daughter stuck in a car and there's
Oh,
like a
the
monster.
movie is called The Monster, which is also
Yeah, yeah,
directed
yeah.
by the same guy. No, I have
The
not
same guy,
seen
yeah.
this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen this, but I can't conjure up more than a couple of frames of images from it in my head.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't I would venture to guess I probably don't like most of this guy's work.
yeah,
Um so again, sometimes movies like this that are very atmospheric are very dependent on when and where you watch them. And maybe
yeah,
I was just in a particularly forgiving mood at the time. But I don't know.
yeah,
I'd be interested to revisit it and see if those themes hit for me. Maybe it's also just because I don't see those themes, not grief, but all the other stuff dealing with like caring for like a dying or dead mother and like dealing with the family
right,
stuff around that. Like I think there's something interesting in there that I'd like to see explored
right.
more. But yeah, I understand it. This movie didn't explore it a whole lot.
Yeah. So I think we've
I think
fleshed that one out pretty well.
we've drained that well.
Um, we got one more, don't we?
Yeah, so this is a movie that most people love. I enjoyed it, but not quite as much. And I have a lot of thoughts on it, to be honest with you. So I'll try to be concise. But the movie's The Night of the Hunter, 1955. It's made by Charles Lawton, who only did one movie ever, which is crazy. And this movie came out
Right,
and it was critically panned. And panned by audiences. Basically, everyone hated this movie when it came out in 1955. Um, and it's since then grown to be like one of the highest rated movies like on Letterboxd. It's 93 minutes, which is right up my alley. I There's a lot that this movie does right, and this is a movie that I enjoy the movie more on a conceptual level than I did actually enjoy watching the movie. And maybe that's a me problem. Again, maybe it's like a when and where I watched it problem. But like it's 1955. It's a movie about a serial killer, one, which like serial killers like didn't even exist back then. So like that's
right,
crazy. I mean, they existed, but like not in media. Like people didn't know that they
right,
existed. And then it also like uses religion as a weapon, which seems very
right.
ahead of the time. Like I can't
Yeah,
imagine there was a whole lot of media out there, about a serial killing priest that like bamboozled people with like religious, preachings that so again, like I appreciate all that stuff. I appreciate like the metaphors of, innocence corrupted. I didn't even realize until I was reading some letterbox reviews that stuffing the money in the doll is like a symbol for like corrupting innocence in itself. Like a lot of
oh,
great stuff in there. Um the cinematography in the second act is like mind-blowing. Like there's really like
yeah,
dream-like sequences that are
right,
really well done. Um, I think the reason that I didn't latch onto the movie is I generally don't enjoy movies that are kind of set up as like an odyssey or like an adventure in the sense that like the setting and the characters change very drastically like depending on where you are in the movie. Like the third act of the
right,
movie introduces like this completely new character, this lady that takes care of them and all of these other kids, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just I find myself disengaging from a movie when it's like resetting like that in every act.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, again, like I found the movie to be like a little bit boring, a little bit slow, but there was a lot within the movie that I really enjoyed and appreciated. So it's kind of a tough one for me to judge. It's also the oldest movie I've ever seen. Disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was a little disappointed to see you only gave it 3 stars, but I admire that you were able to pull out all of these things that you loved and respected about it,
Yeah.
because those are a lot of the reasons that I love it as
Yeah.
well. Um this is a movie, I saw it for the first time maybe 6 months ago, maybe less actually. Um and I was pretty blown away by it. Um and I was reading about how, Charles Lawton only film he directed in his career because it failed, because it was panned and audiences hated it, and
Yeah, that's pretty
and
sad.
I really wish he continued in spite of that. I don't know if he really had the opportunity, to be honest, even if he wanted to, but he did something so special here, because I think, there's a couple reasons why audiences probably didn't like it in 1955, and you touched on both of the reasons. One of which, that it's really critical of religion, right?
Hmm.
The villain, oh, I forgot what his name was, but uses religion as like a tool for control, right?
Yeah.
He literally dupes an entire community into trusting him, literally because he's a preacher,
Yeah.
because he's a man of God, and he can essentially get away with whatever he wants because no one will believe that a man of God is capable of murder, deception, robbery, you
And it's
know.
really
eh,
effective. Like even up until the moment that the mother dies, like even as he's like
Yeah,
killing her, she's like, "This is God's plan."
right. Like this brutally realistic take on religious indoctrination and brainwashing. Um, and I want to talk more about that in a second. But then the second reason I think audiences didn't like it is because it speaks in this cinematic language that I think was very new for the time.
Mm.
You get a lot of these expressionistic sort of shots, like backlit shots of like the house at night where light is pouring through the windows, but the house is completely dark.
Yeah.
And you've got like the silhouette of, Charles Lawton's preacher riding on his horse on the horizon. And you've got like shots where, the kids are riding on the river in their canoe, and the camera is behind like a spider web.
Sure.
And nowadays I feel like a lot of that is automatic for like the modern viewer.
Yeah.
Like you're not even thinking about it, but you're picking up on the meaning of shots like that, right? The
Yeah.
doom and despair. And I feel like a lot of audiences were just not ready for that at the time.
Yeah.
um
No, I mean, I it's interesting because I really struggled writing my review for this film because I found myself at a crossroads where on one hand like I appreciated a lot of things about this movie, but then on the other hand like I couldn't ignore the fact that like just my experience of simply watching the movie, I didn't have like a great time. I didn't appreciate it as much as I appreciated all these little elements of it. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's a when and where thing or if it's more of like, I couldn't ignore maybe the downsides of a movie like this where, some of the acting is spotty or like the pacing is a little messy or, you know, maybe tonally it's not totally consistent. Like another thing I wrote in my review was like maybe if I rewatch this as more of a fairy tale, if I tried to watch it through
yeah,
that lens, like maybe I would appreciate it differently. But the movie's almost presented, or again, maybe it's just because it's so old. I didn't really view it at that way as I was watching it. I viewed it as a very straightforward drama flick, but there is something more fantastical to it, I think.
right. um yeah, there is kind of, especially in the second act. um there's like I said, there's a lot of these expressionistic shots. A lot of the story is um a little bit abstracted by that point. And the tonal switch up that you talked about, I also found that a little jarring when I watched it. But it was in a way I actually ended up kind of liking it more, I think,
Mm,
because of that.
okay.
Um, but it starts off, as this um essentially you could almost call it like a haunting or like a possession. Uh the way the preacher sort of wraps his tendrils into this family and into
Mm-hmm.
this community. Um and religious indoctrination becomes sort of a form of demonic possession, and
Mm.
now he can do whatever he wants. It evolves into like this Huck Finn story of the kids escaping on a canoe,
Right. Yep.
and sort
That's
of
like kind of the
the
second
this
act.
yeah ramshackle sort of quest to fend for themselves and run away from the preacher. um and then it becomes even more like fairy tale where they kind of end up in the under the wings of like this mother bird
Yeah,
figure.
who just like
And
has all these orphans for some reason.
right. And that's the for some reason there is another really interesting part, because back to the critique on religion, right? It's also so mature and nuanced in how it portrays that, right?
Sure.
Because it's not just a straight slamming of religion like, Penn Jillette or Richard Dawkins or whatever. It's also able to say like, look at this woman who's using religion in a positive way, right?
Yeah,
At
yeah.
the end of the movie, like she's a devout Christian and she's using her genuine beliefs, uh, as a reason to care for all these lost children and protect them from this demonic force. So there's more of a dialogue happening within the movie, which I think, first of all, to lambast religion like that in 1955, but then
Crazy.
also to come back and say, well, maybe there are some positives to it. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
conversation to be had there. That could be even more infuriating to people because they can't even write it off as like, oh, it's just shitting all over religion.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's showing another side to it as well.
Well, and to your point of it being mature, I recall there was a moment somewhere in the third act where the little boy that ran away, he clearly is having like an aversion to like the religious aspects and like her reading the
Right,
Bible, and she like takes note of him like leaving the room when it happens. And I don't fully remember the resolution there, but I remember that she doesn't like
right,
scold him. She doesn't like he doesn't get in trouble
right,
for it. Like she handles it in a mature way. Like she understands like what's going on here. And so
right,
I do appreciate the mature writing, and again it leans into kind of the fairy tale stuff with the bad guy just sitting outside all night. And like kind of their
right,
stare down. Like it's very like kind of like I don't even want to say fairy tale. It's like a fable. You know what I mean?
right,
Um,
right, right,
but I will say one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when the preacher guy comes up to Mother Bird, and he starts kind of doing his sales pitch to her, and starts going
right,
into like the hand tattoos and all that, and you can just tell like
right,
off rip she doesn't buy any of it, and it's like the best part of the
right,
movie. And you contrast that to earlier in the movie when he's able to swindle this whole community with this spiel, and it's like
right,
at this point in time, like she doesn't believe him like 3 words out of his mouth. Like by the time he gets to the
right,
tattoos, like she's already out. And I think she just like interrupts him halfway through, and she's like, "Go inside," and like she's like, "I'm done with this." So
right.
well done. It was again well written. I'll give it that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And and just to top it off with the religion thing, um it's interesting because, by the end of the movie you can't really say like this is like the movie that's ripping on religion, but you can say, it's ripping on gullibility and it's ripping on like bad faith
Hmm.
use of religion. Um and you know, in a way, the most harmful entity in the movie is like this old lady early on. I don't know if you remember her or not. There's like a husband and wife,
Hmm.
and as people are like, there are a couple moments where people start to doubt the preacher. The mom, I think, like is like, oh, I don't know about this preacher, but this woman is like, he's a man of God. You've got to trust him.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like this gullibility and this complete faith in religion
Mhm.
that the movie is really tackling. And I think that is I mean, you almost never see it happen or handled in like such a nuanced way.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at the when you look at this movie on Letterboxd and you look at like the summary of it, the little snippet they give you, it says like
Yeah,
in Depression era Virginia or whatever it is, and
right,
they don't really touch on the Depression at all in this movie, but it makes sense. It adds a layer to the desperation that people were probably feeling at the
right,
time, and how easy it probably was to use religion in that way, and I'm sure it did get used
right,
in this way. Um,
right.
so yeah, I mean, it's a movie that I would like to revisit, and I could definitely see myself bumping it up on a revisit. Because again, there's a lot that I like about it. It's just it is hard for me to ignore those inconsistencies. Like you almost said earlier, a lot of this, avant-garde shooting or impressionistic style, it's almost automatic now, where like we've just come to expect a lot of these things. And so
Right.
when there's a movie that is then lacking in other areas, like let's say atrocious child actors, it is
Right.
a bit distracting to me. So it's something that like I have to kind of reconcile with, and maybe I just got to watch it in the right mood, or with the right
Mm.
mindset.
Yeah, I do remember the little sister annoying me a little bit
Holy
in
shit,
this
she's
one.
so bad,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, like, and she's
Yeah.
really young, so like I can't get too
Right.
mad at it, but it's like,
Right.
yeah, dude, it's pretty rough, especially next to the villain, because he's great in it. I
Right.
mean, his performance is
Yeah.
like stellar.
Yeah.
Both the mom and the mother bird later on are both stellar, but yeah, there's a lot, and there's a fair amount of children in the movie, so like it's kind of
Right.
it's kind of tough sometimes, but whatever. It's a restriction of the time.
Yeah. 100%. So, all right. Well, I think that's kind of our breakdown
What was
for
your
the Night of the
of the
Hunter.
three that I made you watch? What is the one that you would recommend to someone?
Of the three that you recommended me.
Yeah, of the three that I forced you to watch with a gun to your head.
Um, I gotta say, and it's not the one that I scored the highest, but I would say Titane,
Nice.
actually.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Dude, we're on the same
because
wavelength there, where it's like I can't tell
yeah,
how much I like this movie, but you should watch it.
yeah, and when evil lurks, right? That was very solid, and I think it was well executed. But I would also say it didn't take the risks that Titane took.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's my main negative is that I didn't feel like all the risks paid off,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't think that everything had like a meaningful purpose.
Yeah.
But I would also say it's a good example of cinema as a mirror. And this is something that a lot of my favorite directors I know have spoken of, like Ingmar Bergman. He made Persona, and there's literally, um, um, oh gosh, a shot of like of the film reel of the movie, if I'm remembering correctly,
Okay, so
which
it's like
literally
it's
which
kind of
literally
meta.
pulls you, yeah, it pulls you right out of the movie and literally tells you you are watching a movie. And a character like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly. A character like sees her own face on the film reel and reaches out to touch it, and the meaning of that is like the movie is a mirror, a reflection of whatever you bring into it,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
baggage you have. And I think Titane is a pretty good example of that,
Yeah, no,
because I think
definitely.
people with different identities and different life experiences could possibly pull more out of this than I did.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that I accused of being like meaningless shock could mean a lot more to someone else,
Yeah.
you know, possibly. So I would say that's
I think that's a good. I think that's a great pick. For me, of the three that you gave me, I would probably. I know it's kind of basic, but I think I would just go with An American Werewolf in London because I think it's a movie that I could very much see getting released today and doing very well. And because of the time period that it was released, I think there are a ton of people who haven't seen it. And I think it like has a little bit of something for everyone. Like it's got something for like the
Yeah.
people who like lore. It's got something for just like classic horror schlock. It's got, it's got comedy. It's even got, some male fantasy sex stuff. So I think that's probably the one that I would like recommend to most people. Cause yeah, it's a really solid flick. Like and it's great for Halloween time because it's a monster movie, and it's
Right.
monster movies are kind of a thing of the past now. So yeah, that one was a pleasant surprise. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me. Hopefully we can do something like this again soon. And yeah, I'll catch you later, man.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Tyler. Signing off. This has been Jimmy.
See you, Jimmy. Bye bye. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you like this episode, feel free to tune in for the next one. Bye bye.